Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 favourite books of 2024. I'm a little stingy with my 5-star ratings. I don't give them out freely, so the book in the 10th spot is actually just a 4-star book, but all the rest are at least a 4.5. So in last place is Salt and Broom by Sharon Lynn Fisher. I think that's her name. It's going to be up on the screen so you can see. Salt and Broom is a Jane Eyre retelling with fae and witches, magic. In Salt and Broom, Mr. Rochester's estate, Thornfield Hall, is cursed. He does not believe in magic or witches, but he is desperate to find a cure for this curse. So he does end up hiring a witch to help lift the curse on Thornfield. Jane is our witch. She focuses most on healing and like potion making, and so she sets off to Thornfield Hall. This is a mix of fantasy and romance, and I think that the characters did stay mostly true to their original inspiration from Jane Eyre. I was set up to enjoy this book. Jane Eyre is one of my, if not my ultimate favourite book ever, and I love anything to do with the fair folk, and I love things to do with witches as well. It wasn't quite insta-love, but it was fast attraction and love, which was not really my thing. I mean, it's a short book, so she had to fit it in somewhere. And aside from it being a Jane Eyre retelling, the cover really did draw me in. Like, it's stunning. It's stunning. And my number 9 spot is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is a sweet, heartfelt, feel-good story following the youth of Anne Shirley, an eccentric orphan girl who gets adopted by the elderly brother and sister Matthew and Marilla. Matthew and Marilla originally wanted a boy, but they were sent Anne by mistake, and they were planning on taking her back, but Anne won over their hearts and love, and they decided to keep her. I really did enjoy this sweet little story, and I definitely want to continue on with the series. I gave this a 4.5. Number 8 is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. If you know nothing of the story, I don't really want to be the one responsible for telling you, because I feel like it would just be so much better if you don't know anything, so instead I'll just talk about my thoughts. I did read this a long time ago, so I can't really remember how I felt about it, but I did give this a 4.5. I think if I reread it, it could even be a 5. So I am planning on rereading this one. Aside from that, I don't know if I have much to say because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a book to do with good and evil and balancing that, or trying to control it, I guess. Number 7 is Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, so the first book in the series. This is actually the first book I read this year, so I read it all the way back in January. So I really don't remember my thoughts for this one because I don't write them down, which is kind of a mistake. I probably should start reviewing them as soon as I finish them. Sorry, there's a car. I really should start reviewing books right after reading them so that I don't have this problem of not remembering my thoughts. But of course we know the story of Narnia follows Lucy and her siblings, them discovering the magical world behind the wardrobe with talking animals, evil witches, big friendly lions. But obviously in the beginning, Narnia isn't a very safe place. The witch has made it eternally winter, but never Christmas. Sad. And so the children go on a journey to try and break this curse so that they can experience Christmas and it's no longer eternally winter. I gave it 5 stars and I love it, but I read it so long ago I can't remember my thoughts, so I think a reread is in order. This is also the bind up of them all, so In 6th place is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. The Fury is Alex Michaelides' 3rd book. And I guess this is an unpopular opinion, but I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I love all his books. I love the way that he includes mental health, and his characters are flawed. They aren't perfect. In The Fury, we follow Elliot Chase recounting his trip to his famous friend Lana Farah's, I don't know how you pronounce her last name, private Greek island, where she invites all of her closest friends. I can't remember what for, but she invites them all, a small group on a private island that ends up getting cut off from civilization due to a storm. And our characters are stuck on this island with a murderer amongst them. I think people are a little harsh with The Fury because it was predictable, for me at least. And I think people want it to be more action-packed. They don't like that it's not, you know, oh my gosh. It's more mental and psychological, like just in the characters' minds and everything. But I think his characters are pretty realistic. They have a lot of internal struggles, and I just really enjoy his books, so that of course made it onto the list. Number 5 is The Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle. I absolutely adore this book. I don't own it because I don't like the cover. Like, I want to find a cute cover of it. The Last Unicorn is a magical story that follows a unicorn in her forest. She's the only unicorn living there. She's alone. She doesn't really think about that too much until she overhears these voices saying that all of the unicorns have gone extinct. And she's like, no, this can't be true. I can't be the last. She sets off. She leaves her precious forest to try and find her kind, to prove that she isn't the last, to find out for sure that there are others still out there. This book is a journey of friendships, like an adventure. It has kind souls and cruel souls. And honestly, I really wasn't expecting the direction it decided to go in with the unicorn. I thought it was good. It was interesting. I wasn't expecting it, like I said. I would recommend it to anybody who loves an adventure story, but in a cozy sort of way that still has stakes. Like, it's not too low stakes. There are still some high stakes. Or obviously with mythical creatures as well. A fantasy journey. If you like that, you should give it a go because it's a sweet little story. I love my neighbours. In the number 4 spot is Dracula. Oh, by the way, I gave The Last Unicorn 5 stars. I don't know if I said that. But number 4 is Dracula, and I also gave this 5 stars. Dracula is an all-powerful vampire, and this book is mostly told in journal entries with a decently big cast of characters, which was good. I liked that. But we follow Jonathan Harker through his diary entries as he makes his way to Transylvania to meet Dracula and to help him buy a house in London. Dracula wants to buy a house in London and wants more victims, I guess. But obviously nobody knows Dracula. Well, nobody outside of Transylvania knows that Dracula is a vampire. So Jonathan starts to notice some unusual things happening to do with the Count Dracula, and starts to feel really unsafe. He can't leave. He's kind of trapped. He's kind of like a trapped guest in Dracula's home. I loved this book. It's 5 stars, but why were there so many blood transfusions? Like, it's vampires. I was expecting blood, but not transfusions. There was a lot of that, and it's starting to make me feel weird. And I love my edition of Dracula. I mean, I have multiple, but this is just from like the 70s, I think. 1979, I think. Prized possession. We're already up to the top 3, my top 3 of 2024. I'm so excited to share with you my top 3. Coming in at number 3 my third favorite book of 2024 is The Silent Page. Yeah, The Silent Patient. The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. I loved this book. This is a 5-star. This book made me so happy. I was so happy reading it. I was enjoying it so much. I was in a slump, a huge slump, before I read this book, and this like saved my life. It saved my slump. It made me see the light. It made me understand why I enjoy reading again, and I don't think it will work for everybody. I don't think everybody will feel that way. It just really hit. Like, it just really hit for me in that moment, and I owe a lot to this book. It got me through that slump, and I appreciate it so much. I'm so excited to read more Laura Purcell books because I loved her writing. This is a book set in in two timelines, the 1800s and the 1500s, I believe. But in present day, Elsie's new husband, Rupert, passes away, leaving pregnant Elsie alone. And Elsie is sent to his family estate with his cousin, who is sweet. Like, the book says she's like kind of like ditzy or something, but I think she was nice. She was a good friend for Elsie. There is a locked door in the estate bearing a wooden figure called a companion that resembles Elsie so much it scares her. And there is also a diary from the previous timeline left behind by the main character of the second timeline that our characters find and read along with us learning what's happening. And I love that so much. That type of dual timeline where they're reading the other timeline, I just love that. I just owe a lot to this book and I love it dearly. And I'm so glad that I finally read it. I had it screenshotted on my phone for a while, and then I actually found it at a thrift store secondhand, and I was like, I've heard of that book, I'm gonna get it. And then I got it, I read it, and it was 5 stars and I loved it so much. That was just the universe giving me this book. Also, it's a little key and it actually goes, or a keyhole. I would suggest you to read this book if you like slow burn, sort of like, it's horror, but not for us. It's horror for the characters. Like, if you were experiencing what these characters were experiencing, it would be horrific and terrifying, but reading it isn't scary to the reader. So I'm iffy to call it a horror, but if you imagined yourself actually experiencing what these characters experience, it would be horrific and traumatic. That's my number 3 book. I love her. Moving on to number 2 now. Number 2 is The Witch Would Not by Olivia Atwater. This is so severely underrated. So underrated. Everybody reads her other one, which I haven't read yet, but I really want to, Half a Soul. But nobody's heard of this. It only has like 3,000 ratings on Goodreads. No, keep going. They're gone. I loved this book so much. It's a gothic fairy novel. Fae. Love. This is, of course, 5 stars, of course. I feel like it was really original. I mean, I haven't read many fairy books. I'm not experienced enough to say that, but I thought so. But in this book, Winifred Hall, is hired as governess at Witchwood Manor. But when Robert, the child in her care, starts acting very strange, Winnie knows that the fair folk living amongst them has done something to him. When Winnie sleeps, she wakes up in the Witchwood Knot, the other half of the Witchwood Manor where the fairies reside. There she enlists the help of the tricky fairy Mr. Quincy, the love interest. They help each other in some way. She needs to find her charge, and he's a fairy, so he always wants something. They always want something. I loved the romance in this, which is incredible, because I am not a romance girly, not unless it's a classic. It is so hard for a romance to hit, to do something for me, but Olivia Atwater did it in this gothic fairy romantasy. I loved the gothic setting. the Witchwood Manor. It was just, and of course it's a historical fiction as well. It's probably set around the 1800s, and I'm a sucker for that. Winnie and Mr. Quincy as characters were both really likable, in my opinion. I thought the cast was likable. I really loved the way that Olivia Atwater dealt with a particular trauma that Winnie has experienced in her past. Regarding that, if you think that you might need to look up the trigger warning, I would. She treads lightly on the subject, but she does a good job she just did a good job with it. So that's my number 2. I love her as well. I do have 2 in the number 1 spot. One of them is just an honorable mention though, because it is a reread, so I'm not going to count it. But that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I love this book so much. I had to reread it to make sure it was an all-time favorite, because I always doubt myself. I'm always like, did I really love that? Did I just want to love it, you know? I always do things like that. But no, I reread this, and this may not look like a lot of tabs to some people, but I don't tab everything. I don't tab everything that I underline. I just tab the parts I want to go back to. So for me, this is a lot. But I absolutely adore Frankenstein. It is such a good story about isolation, humanity, or lack thereof, how people can be affected by the way that we treat them. Let me read you a quote. "Life, although it may only be an accumulation of anguish, is dear to me, and I will defend it." I love that. I love things about being miserable, but still wanting to live. And I love this one as well. "For an instant I dared to shake off my chains and look around me with a free and lofty spirit, but the iron had eaten into my flesh, and I sank again, trembling and hopeless, into my miserable self." I love this book. I love it. Read it. Read it. So that was just an honorable mention. This is gonna hurt. This is gonna really hurt to talk about. But the book in my number 1 spot, my favorite book of 2024. Need I say more? This, let me compose myself. The Deathly Hallows is the final installment in the Harry Potter series. This book is full of lore, of grief, and reminiscing on the past of previous things that have happened in the previous books. It's a lot of grief though, a lot of grief. I felt so sad after finishing the series. I've been currently reading this series for years and years, and it's over. Just like that. Just like that is over. And that breaks me. It really breaks me. Sorry to be a downer. I'm sorry. And don't look at my nails. I wish it wasn't over, but I am happy with this book, and I loved it. I actually only freshly finished this book yesterday. So the wound is still very much open, gaping and painful. I can't express, I really can't. I cried, not at the book being sad, at my experience with it being over for the first time. I know I can reread it, but they'll never be reading it again for the first time, and that breaks me into pieces. I do want to get into a spoiler section with this book, so I will put a timestamp, but also put on the screen spoiler, so you know when I am talking about spoilers if you don't wish to hear them, because I need to. Look at all these tabs. I need to talk about spoilers. To those of you who stayed for the spoiler section, can we talk about Dobby's death for a minute? I loved the way that it was dealt with. I love the respect and the gentleness that the characters gave towards Dobby, especially Harry. You could feel how grateful, you were shown how grateful Harry was to Dobby for saving them all, for losing his life to save all of the characters that he saved. I was a fucking sobbing mess, especially when they started putting pieces of their clothes on Dobby's body when they buried him. I was sobbing. Teardrops were on the pages. It is just so nice and so well done for Dobby, and I'm so happy it was, because let's be real, Hedwig's, she did not get what she deserved. She did not get what she deserved, but I'm so happy that Dobby's was different. Another thing, Percy. Percy just deciding he was a good guy now was really unbelievable to me, but I get it. It was the end. She wanted all the morally grey characters, the ones that weren't necessarily evil, to make amends. Dudley and sort of Draco a little bit, and then of course Percy. I'm glad he was there for his family and everything, but it was not believable to me. Oh, give me a second. She said it. I don't know if you can, oh, sorry guys. It's Molly Weasley saying, "Not my daughter, you bitch," to Bellatrix. I was so worried that was going to be something that the movie did on their own and it wasn't in the books. But it was in the book. I was like, oh hell yeah, she said it. I am so pleased with that, and I'm so happy that Bellatrix is finally dead. I hated her. But I am going to treasure this whole series. This book, the wound will heal eventually. It might leave a scar, but I mean, I think it's lovely to know that a book can do that to you, can bring out so much emotion. And yeah, it can be the nostalgia attached to it, but it's also just, I don't know, it's amazing that books can do that, can make us care so much. And there's always going to be new books that can do it as well. So guys, we have reached the end of my top 10 books of 2024. I'm so glad I could share them with you. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your favorite books, or if you read any of these, and if you hated them, if you loved them, if you just thought they were okay. Like, I'd be interested to know. If you want to leave a comment, I don't know. But that is all. I will see you in my next video. I don't know what that video is going to be, but it will be in a week's time. Thank you so much for watching. Please like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see more. I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.